Welcome to RSA Conference 2023. We're recording live from Broadcast Alley here in Moscone West. I'm your host, Mike Shima, and I'm here with Richard Yu, Head of Product at Edgio. Welcome,
Thanks for
Richard.
having me here.
It's wonderful to have you here. And we're nice and close, sitting next to each other here, so we haven't thrown you off to the edge of our screen. But
that's a good one.
You're telling us about edge security. This is something not necessarily, it's not too new, I think, but it's definitely in a different way of thinking about architectures and probably more importantly, thinking about securing applications.
Yeah, it's definitely not new. It's actually a concept that's been existing for a long, long time. In fact, our company, this industry started more than 20 years ago. As more and more content, as more internet traffic grows more and more, we got to make sure that the network infrastructure resilience, right? So more and more content gets shipped from the edge of the internet, like from tens of thousands of servers worldwide. So it makes sense to actually extend the security from your inner perimeters out, to the edge of the internet. That's the whole concept of, why we're moving towards an edge-enabled security solutions.
Absolutely, because we can't, latency is important, so that's why we're moving that edge to the customer. We haven't fixed the speed of light yet, but I think, for 20 years ago, part of the perimeter was just, this is our hard firewall, and then we have a soft interior. But edge security, that's not what this is. We're not just moving the security out and forgetting internal, are we?
Yeah, like that, it's misconceptions, so to speak. It's kind of like, well, you have a traditional perimeter, firewalls, that's like, close to your soft cores, right? Well, it might sound like we're just, we're just going to expand, increase your surface area. That sounds really bad, like yes. by putting like things. No, in fact, edge security, just by the fact that we have there's servers everywhere in the world. There's within 20 milliseconds of every end users and client, which, by the way, are attackers. Who knows, right? And it's very important to know that instead of having a perimeter, edge security is perimeter-less. You probably heard of this word like fog computing. So it's definitely a misconception. It's more like we're actually extending your perimeters. What we are actually saturating that so that there's no perimeter, because your perimeter is everywhere.
It's everywhere. And I guess that's a little bit like zero trust, the idea that we are also not just going to have security in one spot, and here's one boundary to cross over. Is it close to that?
Yeah, absolutely. Zero trust actually fits really well with this concept. The idea is that every single client request, I mean, you shouldn't wait till out of request to get to your actual physical boundaries before you try to decide, hey, if it's good or bad, should we trust it or not? I mean, you should implement zero trust concept right from the beginning, and preferably right from device. If this request coming from device is malicious, don't trust it. Don't let it get sent off in the first place.
And that's got to be also a smart security idea, because as you mentioned, the attackers are all over that perimeter as well, and you're moving the 20 millisecond latency for the attackers, and this suddenly have botnets. Why wait for that botnet traffic to get all the way to your one single backend data store, right? This is something that we can benefit from?
Exactly. That's actually a whole point. Like when you have a bunch of servers, when you're within 20 milliseconds away from every major metropolitan city in the world, right? Like by being close to the end user, sure, we talk about CDN, we talk about performance, we talk about reducing latency. That may or may not be important to you, but what's more important is also you're close to the attackers, right? Would you rather defeat an attack, mitigate them at the point of their originations, or would you rather do that at your origin? So that the concept is to actually defeat them right when they started.
And I think that helps. You mentioned resiliency, for example. I think that hopefully it helps the developers to also figure out that let's solve this problem here. It makes things a little bit easier to detect, a little bit safer or more resilient for the rest of our infrastructure, not to take it down.
Exactly. Resilient, when I look at resilient, right, you can actually evaluate in two ways. Resiliency as in, the availability of infrastructures, the reliability of infrastructures. What we found is that when you actually start doing mitigating a lot of security on the edge, no one can claim that you're going to do that 100%.
Sure.
They'll be lying. I can pretty confidently say that. But, if you can get rid of 90% of the junk, right, we actually did measure. We actually see that, by doing that, we on average reduce the latency and improve the application performance by 9%. That's actually very significant if you are running, an e-commerce, for example, a performance-sensitive application. The second part of resiliency, it's also from a process, from a workflow perspective. We're giving the ability to respond,
Okay.
because there's prevention, detection, response, right? Giving the ability to detect and respond to any attack on a web really quickly.
So then, that sounds great from the end user perspective. Reduce my latency as a user so I can interact with the e-commerce, whatever, and it just is it's snappier. It looks nice. How does that translate though for the developers? Is it now, edge security, go deploy edge security, I say in square quotes. Is that what you do? What does it look like for developers?
Well, great thing is that, if digital app securities, right? You're either deploying hardwares or like in your perimeters, or developers might not like, people. Oh, you have to like have in your backlog add additional non-functional requirements to like deploy agents in your applications, right? With edge securities, because most edge security runs in a reverse proxy mode, right? It's very infrastructure agnostic. We don't care, right? What applications you're using, what types of infrastructures, physical, hybrids, etc. Right? It can all be deployed, like pretty simplistically. That it's just an easy change in like your DNS record and your life.
That sounds a lot more compelling for the developer side rather than say, why should we always accommodate and change our applications to accommodate security? Can it ever come the other direction? Can't security accommodate us sometime?
Hey, now we're in this DevSecOps territory, right? I love this analogy from I heard from a very wise man that says that security should not be an icing on the cake. Security should be the flour. When you make the cake, it should be part of that. You cannot separate it, and if you do it right, you don't see it. That's the gist of that. That's fundamental of what we want to do, right? And that's what we want to work with developers, make sure that things are integrated in a seamless manner.
And that you've convinced me, both on the taste side of things as well. So what then does it look like to, what are some of the bigger attacks that developers are going to be seeing coming to them, or what are some of the big maybe changes we can expect in web security?
Oh, well, I'll tell you one thing that's emerging. So you used to look at attack in silo, like there's DDoS attack, and even within DDoS attack, you have the network DDoS attack, you have the application, the layer 7 DDoS attack, right? And then now you have the applications. You have the application injections, like logs4j, vulnerability, exploits, etc. And then there's also botnet, right? Like credential stuffing, the gift card. But what nowadays, these three vectors, they could actually happen at the same time, right? So you're seeing more of a advanced persistence attack to a website that requires a true holistic approach, right? Instead of just, hey, this one specialist to handle this type of attack and then pass it to another.
And I guess that's what also edge security can help, because rather than just say, let's just shed this traffic at the edge, which is nice, that's good, but you're also potentially getting that better visibility, so you can also decide, oh, this is what this type of attack is, and we'll respond to it in one way. Here's another type of attack that's not just volumetric. It's going to be more interesting to respond to.
Exactly. Like when you look at how an normal enterprise, like grade, web applications, right? Most of them are using some sort of reverse proxy, cachings to like improve their resiliency, just because it reduces, the amount of loads, for offloading. But it's also very natural, right? Because by doing that, you're actually funneling. Well, funnel is probably not the right word, but you're actually routing all of your traffic to a platform that actually has visibility on all of your web traffic going in and out of your network. So when you have that, like, where's the best place to actually put all of your security detections, technologies? It's on the layers where you see all of the traffic going in and out.
And that sounds like a great case too. That sounds like visibility, being able to see what's going in and out. Honestly, that sounds like a developer, sort of like an SRE or a DevOps even, let's set the security aside. This is what they're interested in. Show me metrics. Show me what my application is doing. And this just so happens that security is actually helping for this for once.
Yeah.
That's a great that's a great way to do things. So if we've already expanded out to the edge, is there anywhere where can we expand from there? What's next step for security or this type of making our apps more secure for whatever we want to see in the future?
So I would say I'm going to use this word consolidations. It's not
okay.
like a pretty frequently used word nowadays, but I would say I don't think the industries are done kind of like moving securities to the edge because again we're in this RSA conference, we see a lot of point solutions. So I always like to compare that against a point solutions. So edge security is not meant to replace the point solutions. I think a lot of platforms are actually currently working with point solutions that does one thing very well. Let's call it best of breed, right? But we want to make sure that we're able to help, our customers, the community, easily integrate it into the platform. So I think the industry is going to trend towards a consolidations of a lot of these point solutions because imagine if each one of them get dropped in. Let's call it plug and play, but not
Sure.
exactly in the platform, right? It means that you're going to have to watch out for a lot of non-functional requirements. Does your traffic get encrypted, re-encrypted, multiple pass? Or can you just do it in a single pass with a single pane of glass?
Right, and yeah, you're describing, again, engineering requirements. Like, why should I do this same operation multiple times and inspect the traffic, re-encrypt it, et cetera? Engineers are just going to say, you're slowing me down. This is going to impact the end user as well. It's going to be visible to them.
Exactly. It's all about reducing frictions for the security adoptions because when you reduce the frictions, we get more secure.
Yes, and hopefully, actually, it just adopts security in the first place if it doesn't exist well. Rather than just shaming people or yelling at them, go do this because we said so, you're actually giving them benefits beyond just security, that visibility and other things that you're talking about.
Security, observability, and you get performance improvement as a nice bonus if that's not your business metric because that usually translate your website latency translate to an exact business metrics, for a lot of corporations.
Yeah, so I wondered then, do you see or would you hope that security even starts talking more about quality and resilience rather than just it's always security, just do this for security? Like what language or metrics should they be moving into perhaps?
Yeah, this is where we talk about how there needs to be a culture change in a lot of organizations because security are being seen as a risk, compliance, or the technologies organizations, but we need to get closer to the business organization as well. And certain industry verticals are more mature at this, like they're more at the forefront of this, especially for like the high latency like companies. So what we talk about, we got to speak to the business with the right language. Like with securities, we can help reduce how much of risk, right? And also like what is the benefits, and also like how does that translate to development velocity? Because like when you're cutting down on a lot of like non-functional requirements, you improve your developer velocity. You spend more time building like revenue generating applications, and latency too, right? By implementing a better security architectures, right? You're translating into a potentially higher, revenue for your applications.
Yeah, and I think what you're describing is here's an application that is successful, meeting user requirements, making users happy, and oh, by the way, it just so happens to be secure as well.
Exactly. Yeah.
Well, I think this is a wonderful recipe you've given us, Richard. Thank you so much.
Yeah. Well, my pleasure.
We appreciate it. If you'd like to learn more about Edgio, visit securityweekly.com/EdgioRSAC. And stay tuned and stick around. We have much more coming up on our live stream.
All right. Thanks for having me here.
Thanks again, Richard.
Have a great day.